Welcome to Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. Coming up on the programme this week,
I was ending up in A&E twice in the same night, where I'd go in because I'd tried something, I'd get sent home, I'd still in psychosis, I'd try something else, back in A&E, and it was that continuous cycle for about 3 or 4 years.
When you've been thinking about things like suicide, or there's no, that you can't see ways forward, to actually not only can I see a way forward, but I'm also planning what that route might look like, literally.
Yes, I thought I'd give it a go. And then from that first run, I kind of felt great. Even though I literally ran down the road and I thought I was going to pass out, I felt great afterwards. Like, wow, okay, let's give it a go.
And I'll be reminding you how you can make connections with mental health organisations within your community. It's Mental Health Monday.
We're the home of the UK's conversation about mental health. It's Mental Health Monday. My name's Mick. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for checking out the podcast once again. And let's keep the conversation about mental health on the move. We've got a guest this week who's absolutely on the move, because actually the focus of his work is based around his own mental health journey, but also about how running plays a part in where he's at the moment. And it's not just about running and pounding the pavement and heading out and about. There's an extra added element to this from the mental health runner, Thomas Dunning, who we'll catch up with in a few moments' time. Really interesting guy. Really difficult time that he's experienced, as you will hear, but coming through the other side, finding a way forward and actually doing things just a little bit differently in a way that hopefully, maybe you might want to get involved in. All the details in the podcast. It is Mental Health Monday. We had a big reaction to last week's show with Phil Noon, Evolving Mindset, particularly based around the little promo video we put online about the clip from the show when he was talking about reaching out, encouraging people to reach out, whereas actually we need to be teaching people to reach in. And got a really huge reaction there on Facebook. The Facebook group's got a load of new members in there as well, so welcome to you. Always a pleasure. Great to have you on board. And it's nice to have that community feel around Mental Health Monday, because it's what we're all about. Up and about on social media. We do the podcast at 6 a.m. on a Monday. It'll always be there weekly. But then on social media, on the Twitter feed, on my Twitter feed, at Mr. Mick Coyle, you'll see a promo video, a video clip. So if you need to put a face to the name and the voice, that's where you can find that. And of course, I'll always put that on the Mental Health Monday group as well. Don't forget, every previous episode of the podcast is available to listen to. You can subscribe to Mental Health Monday wherever you get your podcasts, and it will automatically come through. Do get involved in the show. Love to hear from you. Details of how you can get involved in the show through the social media. But let's crack on with the conversation for this week. Thomas Dunning is his name, aka the Mental Health Runner. If you're on Instagram, at mental_health_runner. Do check out the things that he's doing and the tags that he's been working on as well. More than 3,000 of these tags dotted around the country. We'll hear some more about that as part of the conversation. But first, we had a conversation about where he was at in terms of his mental health, the difficult things that he'd been through, and how he got up to this point.
Pretty much my mental health journey started way before I finished my engineering degree. It was kind of looking back, as hindsight's always 2020. There's a lot leading up to it. So in 2009, unfortunately, my brother passed away. He succumbed to cancer, unfortunately. And that same week where he passed away, I was actually informed that I'll be part of my mechanical engineering apprenticeship. So as I did my apprenticeship, I did my degree within that. And after the 5 years of study, came out my time with my degree, my mechanical engineering degree. And pretty much straight after I graduated, my brain just kind of went, oh, by the way, this happened. Because I used my studies as a form of trying to box everything up, for want of a better phrase. And pretty much once that box was opened, my life was turned upside down pretty much overnight. I'd start to hear things to the point like we're talking now. A voice I've never heard before, and they'd be saying derogatory things, just like you're fat or you're ugly, you're worthless, things like that. But these weren't my internal thoughts. These were, like I said, as if you were to shout abuse at me right now. It was so lifelike. Again, I didn't tell anyone about it, and these voices started to become more active, let's say. So they would actually tell me to start smashing the house up in different ways, and unfortunately, I could do nothing but do what they said. Again, I didn't tell anyone, and my partner could see at the time that I wasn't very well. She knew exactly what was going on. I didn't tell her, and again, it got worse to the point where I would see things. So the only two things I'd ever see would be blood on my hands, like really thick congealed blood. I could feel it running down my face. It was horrific. Obviously, it wasn't there, but all I was actually feeling at the time was just like the tears and the snot and everything that comes with being in a very bad place. But for me, what I was seeing was blood, so it was blood. And the other thing I'd see would be my brother Will. Unfortunately, he'd follow me in every room that I ran into to get away from him, and he would just walk around with me. Obviously, he wasn't there. He couldn't have been because he died 5 years previous. And that basically became my life. It got to the point where I was trying to take my life pretty much every day. The worst it got was I was ending up in A&E twice in the same night, where I'd go in because I'd tried something, I'd get sent home, I'd still in psychosis, I'd try something else, back in A&E, and it was that continuous cycle for about 3 or 4 years. Until I found running, really, until I found that how running really helps benefit people's lives and just being active, really. And the running aspect, I remember leaving the house, running to the next lamppost down the street and thought I was going to pass out. And then the next day I thought, well, okay, I felt quite good after that. Let's try the second lamppost. And then after that, it became lamppost, then streets, and then it's got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Can I ask you about that
Sure.
sort of did you have a diagnosis then of these psychotic episodes or of a psychosis? Were you when you were able to explain what it was you were doing or why were you doing it? Was that an open part of the conversation at that point, or was that something you still continue to try and keep hidden?
Yeah, I was thankfully, because of the trauma I was going through and smashing the house up and things like that. Unfortunately, I was in the waiting list for a very long time, about 1.5 years until I was seen by a psychiatrist, and that was me being rushed through from the crisis team because of how I was. And then basically from that, from the first psychologist meeting, because I kept a diary, they diagnosed me first of all with bipolar, which was a bit of a misdiagnosis, and it was then changed to borderline personality disorder. And then with that, I've also got the social anxiety with it, and social anxiety disorder, and also PTSD, again from when my brother passed away, from when I was bullied when I was younger. And I got a formal diagnosis finally of PTSD, social anxiety disorder, and borderline personality disorder in the end.
In terms of the running then, you obviously have that diagnosis, and presume with that came whatever the appropriate sort of response was. That was the running something you thought, oh, I need to do this myself, this is something else, this is something I fancy doing or something I want to get into? At what point did you think running could become part of that journey and be a positive part of that journey?
Well, to be honest, my wife suggested it. She said, you used to like going running and going for like some running events, and why don't you just give it a go again? So I gave it a go. She was right for me to seek help. She was right about a lot of things through my kind of episode, as it were. Yes, I thought I'll give it a go. And then from that first run, I kind of felt great. Even though I literally ran down the road and I thought I was going to pass out, I felt great afterwards. Like, wow, okay, let's give it a go. And then it kind of became a healthy obsession, for want of a better phrase. It was something I enjoyed. It was being present in the time. Feeling the weather on your skin. Whether it be sunny, raining, windy. Hearing nature and hearing things. It was so grounding that I needed, especially when I was fighting psychosis. It was such an important thing for me. That's kind of just became, like I said, a healthy obsession, for want of a better phrase. And then within about 7 months, I'd lost about 7.5 stone, just through eating a bit healthier and getting active. There was no special way of doing it. It was just because I did something that I enjoyed.
Now, in terms of people who go for running, it's something I've introduced into my own routine from having conversations with a lot of people who say how much benefit it brings you. And I absolutely agree. And I also like the idea of that obsession that people slightly get around it. I absolutely have that. I also have that thing about the next lamppost, try and get to the next lamppost. Completely appreciate everything you're saying there. I think what's really interesting though, when you've got like a diagnosis, which appears to be you've come from a really, severe set of circumstances there with what you were going through. And I think sometimes people just presume that running can just be a keep on top of things a little bit as terms of a practice. But what's been the benefit in terms of dealing with things like the psychotic episodes and the psychosis and those other diagnoses that you talked about? Or are there other things that you do before you put your trainers on, if you like, that allow you to almost clear your mind to go for that run?
I obviously need to stress that running isn't really a form of therapy, if you know what I mean. It is, like you said, a way that I keep on top of things. I have gone through therapy myself. I've spoke to professionals, and even to this day, I sometimes have weak moments. We all have them. And I'd just sit there and I'd speak to my wife and say, look, I'm not feeling too great today, let's have a quick chat, and be open about it. I think one of the biggest things regarding what made me go down that rabbit hole of psychosis was I didn't speak to anyone about it. Obviously Amber could see that I wasn't in a good place and she knew all about it, but I wouldn't talk. So I'm very much open about it again. When my anxiety kicks in, I do all my breathing exercises that I've learned over the past, and just using what I've learned in the past couple of years to help me recover and keep on top of things, which has helped me maintain it to get better, and the therapy to help me rationalize things and change certain behaviors and things like that. But the running definitely, it's so important for my well-being. It's unreal.
I think one of the things that when you're starting out running that I found is that when you start running and you don't enjoy it at all, like because it's awful and you feel terrible, you just think, oh, why am I doing this? But then later on you'll go, I'm really pleased that I went for a run today. Like, that's it. Yeah. Hated every single second of it. Wanted to be sick when you finally crawl back over the front doorstep. But you then go, oh yeah, I quite like this feeling of I did some exercise earlier. And actually then you then think, oh, well, I can have this feeling again by doing this thing, which I know it's not good when I'm doing it, but actually I feel better afterwards. And you always teach your brain, don't you, to sort of go through. Exactly. So even when you're doing it and it doesn't feel great, in the back of your mind, you can think, but it will feel great afterwards. So you almost I think it almost trains your brain, doesn't it, to plant yourself into the future, because you almost go, oh, maybe actually next time I might go down that road, or I might go I might go a little bit, or I might go and run in this direction. I think it's one of those interesting things that the brain does while you're doing something like a run, because when you've been thinking about things like suicide, or there's that you can't see ways forward, to actually not only can I see a way forward, but I'm also planning what that route might look like, literally. Where it might take me, which is, I think it's the brain going somewhere where it doesn't necessarily realize it's going, but just by the very process of it, it's in a very different place.
It is definitely, 100%.
Can I ask you as well? Because in terms of you do the running, but of course, as part of the running, you've added an extra element to this one as well, which I think is really commendable, because it's not just about getting out and about and obviously getting those benefits that we've just spoken about, and the benefit to yourself, but you also thought, I can do more with this along the journey. Just so tell us about Operation Samaritan, because this is a really interesting angle.
Yeah, sure. So Operation Samaritan was kind of the first thing that I've done a lot of other things like leading up to it, but I mean at the current moment, I kind of thought to myself, when I was in that stage of trying to take my life, and what would have helped is having that one person to be there for me. And I was lucky enough that my wife was there, and I kind of thought, well, what was the idea? How can we make that possible for other people who may be outside, and out on a run, or just going for a walk, or is in psychosis and is running down the street and needs that grounding, for example. So Operation Samaritan just became me and a friend. We made about 10 laminated tags, which had the details of the Samaritans charity, with a bit of a phrase in the back, like a motivational statement. And the front of it was obviously details of the charity. You get like a text number and also a phone number you can call. And we put them around Lincoln, and all of a sudden people in the running community in Lincoln said, can I help you? Can I help you do that? So I thought, okay, I'll make a couple more. So 10 became 100, started dishing them out. And then those people posted on their social media, and then all of a sudden I had people all over the UK saying, can I have some tags? I think it's a brilliant idea. And that's kind of what developed Operation Samaritan, the fact that I've got the running, the running community is coming to help me and basically try and help prevent suicides, essentially, attempted suicides, by putting up these tags all over the UK. And the spin I'm putting on it is, go out for a walk, go out for a run, go biking, do whatever you do to get active. But when you go past a lamppost or a bus stop or something else, please put these tags up, because you never know. There might be someone waiting for a bus who might be at the early stages of their mental health journey and might not know where to go. They might not know who to turn to. And right there is the details of someone who they can talk to. And yeah, it's just kind of exploded. We've now made 3,000 tags in total. It's me and my wife make them. Literally every single one's handmade. So we print them out, cut them, laminate them, cut them to size, hole punch them, bundle them in packs of 20, and then whoever wants a pack just message me and say, can I get involved? Yep, I'll send them out to you. And yeah, it's just kind of gone bang. Well, it's all over the UK, really.
So you obviously started out in Lincoln. How far? What's the furthest tag away that you're aware of?
The most it's kind of hard, really. If you think about that's not actually on this island, as in England, Wales, and Scotland. The furthest one is in Dublin.
Right.
On our shores, there's one in the middle of Scotland, and there's a couple. There's a couple in the middle of Scotland, and there's one that got posted yesterday in Newton Abbot, which is in Cornwall. So yeah, it's literally everywhere. We're in every single country in the UK. There's some in Northern Ireland as well. They're everywhere. As weird as it may sound.
It's amazing because it's obviously such a simple idea, isn't it? Of let's put these here, people will see them, and hopefully when they do see them, they'll remember it. Or if they don't need them at that moment, at some point later on, they'll remember, oh yeah, I saw that when I was walking down that street, or it was attached to that lamppost. There is a place you can call. There is a number to turn to, which is used. But also this idea that there's this always community response to it of people who've gone, absolutely, Thomas, I'll do that. Like, can I get involved in that? Did that surprise you that it wasn't just you doing it, that other people wanted to do the thing that you were doing?
Yeah, it took me totally by surprise, because, like I said, it was just a thing where I thought, well, what would have helped me at the time? And we literally went for a run and thought, right, we'll do little locations, quick tag, quick break, take on some water and go for a jog again. Just something to do. And now we've got people all over the UK putting these tags up. It's been amazing. Obviously, the feedback people have said, saying it's a great idea. They want to get involved. And I stress to people, you don't have to go for a run. You can just go for a walk. You can walk the dogs. You can go for a bike. You can moonwalk. Do whatever you do to get active, and just put these tags up. And yeah, I honestly cannot thank the community enough. Yeah, amazing.
And it's interesting as well, because I think the other thing is from your story and your journey, that sometimes people feel like that they can't see the moment where they will put on a pair of trainers and go running, or put on a pair of football boots and join a five-a-side team, or pick up a knitting needles and join a stitching club, or whatever it would be. And actually, you've explained, from point zero to get in there and then developing and then finding something else, finding a different sort of community response to it, I think is really inspiring. I think people will hear about that and they'll think, oh yeah, I might not feel like that's out there, but if I maybe put a couple of steps out there, I might find it. And if I do, that'll put me in a better place. But sometimes that first step, that first run, is the hardest one to do.
It is. We all know what it's like to start out. Everyone's had that moment where they've put the trainers on, and I can guarantee near 9 times out of 10 people have gone, I hate this. But then at the end they've thought, well, I feel so much better after that. And I ran down the road. I've never done that before, for example, and it is an amazing thing to do, and it's just a simple thing to do as well.
I can ask you as well about, you mentioned weight loss before, and I know that's not necessarily the reason why you were doing it, but it's obviously one of the benefits to it. I just wondered whether or not you felt that that had also changed your perceptions around your mental health? Were there things around sort of self-esteem and body confidence as well, which you feel different about now? Now that you're
Oh yeah,
7.5, do you see 7.5 stone
that's it. Yeah,
lighter?
7.5 stone. Yeah,
Because that's a big change in terms of what you physically look like. That's a big change, isn't it?
it is. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it definitely it made me feel better, 100%. In myself, had a lot more energy. I really felt excited to go outside and go for a run and explore new places. And yeah, I've always been known as the fat kid in school. That's why I was bullied. I was that metaphorical fat kid. I was always overweight, bullied to the point I was being beaten up and things stolen off me, and quite a bad time. So in order to lose that weight, and I finally felt, you know what, I've done a lot here, even if it's just a weight loss. That it's such a it made me feel incredible. And I'm not saying that if I didn't lose the weight, I wouldn't be in the same position now. It's obviously just a byproduct of eating healthier and getting more active. But yeah, obviously my self-esteem was increased because I was starting to step away from what I was bullied for and stepping into who I wanted to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I imagine as you sort of get older, you're able to sort of comprehend a little bit better maybe what was going on in the almost in the mindset of the bullies back then, and how we were able to frame and reframe a little bit of our own childhood experiences.
Definitely,
based on how, because bullies when you meet them when you're sort of 12 years old are just this, like, it's like, the scariest thing ever. And I think that's the other thing, that when you realize as you get older, when you look back, that there are vulnerabilities that you had in yourself and probably vulnerabilities in them, which they then thought, well, maybe if we try and highlight somebody else's, people won't spot ours. And I think particularly in those young ages, there's something else going on in a bully's life, and actually their only way to deal with it is to try and make somebody feel worse than I feel about myself, which is it's such a negative circle, isn't it? And it's why bullying and school bullying is such a difficult thing. I think obviously as it turns into adulthood, it can be much more damaging because of the consequences of houses and jobs and all that sort of stuff. Definitely. But at that young age group, at that young age, for yourself must have been such a, because it is your whole world, isn't it? When you're a kid,
it is,
how your friends perceive you very much shapes your worldview, because it's you and your friends and who you play on video games with, or who you play football with, and who you see in the classroom. We have quite limited worlds at that age, and for it to come with negative consequences must be really, really difficult.
Oh yeah, definitely, 100%. And looking back, I know I've met some of the people who have bullied me since, and they've actually congratulated me from where I've been, and they've apologized to me, which is fair play to them, and they've told me what they were going through at the time. And it's all kind of, from my experience, is that the people who lash out are the people who themselves are in some kind of pain, whether it be physical or mental, and they haven't got an outlet for that, and obviously, unfortunately, they lash out. And that's what I experienced, and unfortunately, like you said, it does shape people's lives. You don't think at the time, but obviously my story when I look back is, it's definitely took a profound effect. But in a twisted kind of way, I wouldn't change that purely because of where I'm at now. My life would be entirely different if I wasn't bullied. Do I wish I wasn't bullied? Oh, 100%. But I mean, the fact that I had to go through that is, it's made me the person I am today. And it's much like the same in any part of my mental health story. People have asked me, do you ever regret, for example, trying to take your life, about all the people you'd have hurt? And, quite bluntly, yes, I'd feel bad because of what I'd hurt on other people, but I wouldn't change it because it's something I've had to go through, because it's just what's happened. It's where I've had to go through it. It's maybe the person I am today to help with the people. So, it gives you a really different outlook on life, just for a small part of it, if you know what I mean.
Here's a bad analogy, but there's that bit at the end of the Avengers. This isn't a spoiler, but when they start talking about going back in time,
yes,
but Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr.'s character, basically says, right, we can do this, but I cannot do anything that changes anything in the past that affects what I've got here now, because he's essentially saying, I don't want to change anything, even though it's been awful, because the thing I've got now is a thing I've got to protect. And I think we should do that as well, shouldn't we? We should feel not necessarily proud of being the sum of our experiences, but understand that we are the sum of our experiences. That the person that we are today and the person that will be tomorrow and the day after are all based on what's come the day before. And it would be very odd if we suddenly just blank that out, like, and you'd suddenly, we just used to skip to school every day and we'd do our homework and then we'd skip on home, and like it wouldn't be the same, would it?
No, exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah.
It's it's a strange one though. The people said that thing, don't they, where they always say, if you could go back and give a piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be? And my answer to that now is, if a bloke who's nearly 40 tries to show up at one day offering you advice about what you should do in the future, tell him to get lost. You'll sort it out. You'll figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And that's probably the best answer that I give anyone myself.
I always think it's such an interesting, because you'd like to think at that moment you had a very wise thing to say.
Yeah. That's it.
Whereas actually it would be little subtle things. Well, in the same way that I've got kids now, so the things I say to my children, I don't offer them like big Abraham Lincoln style speeches or something out of Independence Day. It's the little things. It's you're just hoping to nudge them a little bit further up to the point where they can deal with it themselves. But yeah, it's always what would you say to a younger version of yourself? Like, well, how young? Like, what would you say to you from 5 years ago? What would you say to like a 10-year-old? Because a 10-year-old probably wouldn't listen to you anyway.
That's it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's certainly an interesting question, an interesting philosophical question. People can follow you. Instagram's a good place for this one. So mental_health_runner. People can follow you on there. And you're also up and about on Facebook as well, Mental Health Runner, but with no spaces. I think that's right in saying that.
Yeah.
We can get those tags up on the social media as well. And I guess people will say now that we've heard you doing it all yourself, they might be thinking we don't want to give you any extra work. But if people do want to sign up for the tags and get tagging, is that something they can do in terms of contacting you via the Instagram and social medias?
Yeah, that's literally it. Is literally I've had people don't follow me actually ask me on the picture itself that I post up, and then message me through that, or people just send me a message asking if they can help anyway. I've had people just saying, can I have some tags, please? And that's absolutely fine. So yeah, if you want to get involved, please just message me, and I'll happily get some sorted for you.
Excellent. And what have the Samaritans said, by the way? Have they communicated with you about the fact you've got Operation Samaritan up and running?
They've been very, very helpful. There's been a lot of things before we got kind of going fully going proper. There's a couple of things that I didn't quite realise that could be quite triggering to the mental health community and things like that. So we've worked quite a bit to make sure we're not doing that, because obviously that'd be counterproductive. But yeah, they've been very, very forthcoming and very helpful with it. Definitely, yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Great to hear. The Mental Health Runner _ on that one for Instagram as well, but also on Facebook. But I'll put all the links in the write up to the podcast as well. Thomas Dunning, Operation Samaritan, and the Mental Health Runner. An absolute pleasure to have you on the program.
Likewise, and thank you so much for having us.
I hope you've enjoyed this week's podcast. Thanks for checking out Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Mick Coyle. You can also find me, Mick Coyle, on Facebook as well. Don't forget, if you want to speak to somebody about your mental health, you can do so. The Samaritans, free to call on 116 123. You can find mental health services where you are. Just look for the Hub of Hope. Type in your postcode. It'll find those mental health services close to you. And for support in a crisis, you can text SHOUT to 85258. That's if you're experiencing a personal crisis, you're unable to cope and need support. Shout to 85258. That's a text line. Do get involved in those services. In an absolute emergency, always remember the number to call is 999. Thanks for downloading the podcast this week. We'll be back next week with more Mental Health Monday.